like to gamble, I tell you I'm your man. You win some, lose some, it's all the same to me.
Hey, what's up guys? This is Mickey Peterson here. I'm playing online as Memento Mori, and I'm here doing my first video for CardRunners. Today I'm gonna run you through a 100 Rebuy final table I played a couple of weeks ago, as you can see here. And I'm currently in 8th place with 9 remaining, so it doesn't look too good chip-wise, although I do have 21 big blinds, which is a stack I'm really comfortable with, because you can just sit around for a bit, and like if someone opens, you still have full equity when you shove over them. So yeah, you're not entirely desperate with this stack yet. You still have some time to pick your spots. I'd like to apologize for the browser that just popped up. There might be a few times during this video where either my browser or iTunes or another table or AIM or something pops up. And it's just because I'm not really familiar with how Camtasia works just yet. And I have 2 monitors, which makes it even more tricky, but hopefully it will be eliminated by the next video. Alright, so there's a pretty interesting hand here. Such a Barrison opens under the gun, and Mormon, who's a really aggro laggy player, free bets him, and another wreck, the Dewey, ships all in for just about 20 big blinds from the big blind. And I think he has a pretty strong hand here for the most time, even though Mormon can be sort of weak here. He doesn't have that much fold equity of any, so he needs a pretty strong hand to continue here. And such a Barrison has an interesting decision, it seems, but he ends up folding. I assume Mormon is going to call here. Yeah, that's a standard pool, and nothing you can do, obviously. But Mormon, being Mormon, obviously decides to bink the jack in the river, so he has an even bigger chip lead now. And he's pretty dangerous with the chip lead. I'll get to my reads in the players in a second. Alright, so here with 21 big blinds, I'm in raise king jack off. There's no small blind this hand, which sort of works in my favor and against me. It works against me in the sense that with no small blind, there's obviously less incentive to steal. There's less money in the pot. But the good thing about it is that since I know most of these players at the table and they're fairly smart players, they'll realize that I know this as well, and as such, they will assume that I will open with a tighter range of hands. So in that sense, it benefits me. It probably evens itself out at the end, but just something to keep in mind. Alright, so quickly my reads on the different players at the table. If we start with filling the blanks, don't really know too much about him. He might be a regular or semi-regular player, but I wasn't entirely sure at the time, so I just elected to assume he was a random player. And Sergio Barrison, the next one, he's really, really good. Like, he plays all the big tournaments online, but also cash games to like 10-20, I think. People who read on 2+2 will know him, because he posts a lot, but I don't think he wants his name revealed, so I'm not going to do that. Just going to say that I have a huge amount of respect for his game. He's really good. Yeah, not looking forward to playing pass with him at all. Then there is Pimes right next to me. I only played with him from 2 tables down, but the way he has played so far, like my read on him, is that he's pretty passive. Will mostly just call pre-flop with too many hands. Will re-raise his good hands, like play pretty straightforward. Call it off flop, call it off turns, probably fold a decent amount of rivers. And the way he got all his chips was just cooling someone with aces versus kings in the bubble, so that's why he has such a huge stack. Alright, so here I have queens with 17, 18 big blinds, something like that. And Mormon opens. The only thing I can really do here is shove. Even though he is opening a lot of hands, he's aware that I know he's opening a lot of hands, and he's gonna adjust by calling with more hands. And if I just re-raise here, it's gonna look way too strong and suspicious, because I wouldn't really do that with my weaker holdings, so... And calling is completely out of the question. Like, just looks way too strong, and yeah, like, there's just no point to it, so it's a pretty easy shove. It's just unfortunately that he folded. Alright, who was... Oh yeah, so Shibita Off, who's on my left, he's a really good regular as well. Plays pretty tight in my experience, but doesn't really make too many mistakes or anything. Just not gonna give up many chips, so not thrilled to have him at the table either. The same thing kind of goes for Ronald Grauer. I think he plays slightly more hands than than the average regular, but he plays well, and he's been around for a long time, doing well consistently. And just like the other guys at the table, he knows how to play a stack. He has now like 23 big blinds or something like that. Like, he's very aware of how to play this stack, so he's not going to be giving too much up either. Then there's Mormon, who I have the purple node on. Oh, but by the way, I should explain that. The light blue node is what I use for really good regulars. People who play really well and have a good game, basically. Now, the purple color I have assigned to, like, I guess, like, between 10 and 15 people or something. And I only use that for the absolutely best players, like the elite. And Mormon certainly belongs in that category. He's, like, extremely laggy, but also really aware of his image. And when he has a huge chip lead like this, he's just going to be absolutely relentless with his aggression. And just open a ton of pots. Yeah. Alright, now I have a hand here, 2 10s, just min raise again. Hopefully, this is a pretty good spot to pick up some chips and get a double up. Let's see what happens, especially if one of the shorter stacks. 3 chips. Yeah, here, as you can see, I snap call. It's not like I'm that far ahead of the hands Mormon plays, but I do think he shoves like some smaller pairs, like say 7s through 9s at least. And he can have like the random worst hand. And besides, I need a double up, so like all those factors considered, it's a very easy call. And I think the 7 doubled up. Want to flip against Mormon? How about that? So now I have a really comfortable stack. Like, the difference between what I can do with a 20 big blind stack and a 40 big blind stack is pretty huge. Basically, I can just open more hands now. I can 3-bet fold to people. Like, I just have more moves in my arsenal now, which is really cool. Ace king here. And Shibrov min raises, just like I do, under the gun. Now, you could probably make an argument for calling, re-raising, or shoving. I think calling is by far the worst. Like, I'm just not going to I'm going to keep his dominated aces in, but I'm not going to be able to stack him even close to often enough to justify it. Now, I like to just 3-bet just because I want to give him the chance of jamming like a Jack-10 suited, Ace-Jack kind of hand. It's not going to happen terribly often, but at least it can kind of give him the illusion that I have a bluffing range in that spot. And as you can see, I snap him off and trying to look cool, and he has 2 aces, so I end up looking pretty dumb. That's obviously a standard cooler. There's nothing you can do here. This is just bad luck. Even like, had this stacked up at a final table, even if it's under the gun versus the big blind, like, we're just way too shallow to ever consider doing anything else. So now I'm back on the short stack grind, and the blinds just burned up. So now I'm even shorter than when we started this final table. I guess I forgot to mention my read on Fighting Chicken. To be honest, I don't really remember too much about him. I feel like he might have been slightly too over-aggressive. That's usually what I use that orange-yellow color code for, like just seeing too many flops and being too aggressive in the wrong spots. But I feel like he played pretty solid overall, from what I recall of playing with him before. I've definitely seen him around. Alright, so he opens here, and I have Ace-Jack off in the bottom. Pretty easy shove in my opinion, because as I said, I think he's opening like a decent amount of hands, and I have fold equity, and well, I'm the shortest stack at the table. Like, all those factors combined just makes it a pretty easy shove. Unfortunately, he has me dominated, but I dinged it. So I got pretty lucky there, but again, one of those hands where you feel like there's nothing you can do differently. Like, that's just the way it's supposed to go. So now I have around 30 big blinds, which is kind of interesting since I had a 20 big blind and a 40 big blind stack before. And what I can do with this stack is obviously somewhere in the middle of the other two. Like, it's possible to 3-bet fold, but it's certainly not recommended unless you feel pretty confident in it being the right move at the spot. Another thing that would indicate that Pons might not be such an experienced player is that you can see he's the only player at the table who opens to 3x he just opens to 3 big blind raises, which is way too big when stacks get this deep. So yeah, 9-5 suited, just folding here. The big blind is really short. Ronald Grauer in the button has a really good reshove stack, and Mormon is known for free betting light. Not a good spot to open light at all, in my opinion. And Mormon shoves from small blind versus big blind. I imagine he's shoving just about any 2 cards there for less than 10 big blinds. Seems fairly reasonable. And here you can see Mormon open shove from the button, even though the big blind has actually 20 big blind, which is sort of the standard nowadays, but just kind of interesting note. Alright, here I have Ace-King suited against Pimes, who I just told you about my reads in depth. And I'm free betting him fairly small here. Again, mainly to give someone a chance, either Pimes or one of the other guys, to put it in to the light behind me. Kind of hope to induce a light 4-bet. The other thing that's good about making it small is that I feel like Pimes is going to peel a ton of hands here, and like you just want to keep in all the hands that have dominated, all the dominated aces and kings and stuff. This is a pretty bad flop, obviously, not the greatest at least. I decided to check it back. I have the backdoor flush draw. And here he checks really, really fast again. Now, I feel fairly confident in my hand at this point. And pairing the board and the river makes me even more confident. I'm pretty sure I always have the best hand here, almost. As you can see, I almost considered betting, and I probably should have done, just trying to fold out better ace highs. And he had Jack 10 suited, so he definitely is peeling with a fairly wide range in that spot. Probably all the hands he opens. So that worked out fairly well. I'm pretty happy with how I played that, except maybe I should have bet the river. Like, he's not going to hero call kings like some people might do, but he's might fold out aces, although I'm not entirely sure. Alright, so open 4s here. Pimes defenses big blind against my min raise. Get a really good flop. Easy continuation bet. And as you can see, I bet a little over half pot. That's also my standard. I make smaller continuation bets than most people do. And it's sort of just a preference thing. It's certainly fine to make it bigger as well. That's more the common thing to do these days. But I just feel like you can put a lot of pressure on people like just betting like around half the pot. Alright, so Queen 5 suited in the big blind here. We're looking for a walk, obviously. It's not that great a hand. Like, if Sergey Berezin does anything, I'm certainly not going to be defending here. Even if Pimes call, I still wouldn't defend, probably, just because it doesn't flop very well at all. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like I folded this hand. I'm probably, yeah. That's not a great spot to free bet light. Alright, so here I have 7s, blind versus blind, against the good reg. I have no intentions of folding this. Like, if he free bets here, I'm just gonna pile it all on his face, because this is such a strong hand, blind versus blind, against another good player. But he just calls, defense. And this flop, obviously, I flop a set, which is huge. But not only that, but this is a flop where the hands that he peels with, I feel like it hits pretty well. So, I feel like there's a good chance you can stack him here, especially it's also a really drawy board. So, there might be a chance to, like, get him to put it all in with a huge draw. Alright, so he just calls my bet on the flop, and I have no plans of slowing down here. Like, I should just keep on betting for sure on this texture. There's not really any good point in checking. Like, he's gonna check better hands behind, not better hands, but like 8s or something like that behind sometimes, like 8x. And he might check, like, if he has like 6-5 or something, he can check that behind. Even